I believe that life is a journey where learning should never stop. I'm in my silver years now, as you can see, and people don't grow old. People don't grow old. They grow old only when they stop growing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Networking and Beyond. Today we have with us a very special guest. He is a senior DC in training at Bangalore BNI Region. I remember attending one of his very first training programs, MSP. His charisma and the way he engaged his audience left everybody enthralled. This person is also the owner of Viman Apparels, which is in Malleshwaram. He is known for his charisma and style, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our very next guest, Mr. Ram Samtani. Ram sir, welcome to Networking and Beyond.
Thank you, Lalit.
How does it feel to be on this podcast, sir?
Well, for starters, this is the longest drive I've had towards the south of Bangalore after, the lockdown. So it feels good. You've been asking me to come and do this for a bit now, and I'm glad that I'm here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation and coming down. Pleasure. I know you've been a busy man with all your tied up schedules. Sir, so the first time I met you, I was really impressed by the way you carried yourself, especially in a BNI meeting. And I had all these kind of amazing assumptions about you. So I want to know, for the people who've known Ram Samtani, what is the background? What is the backstory of you? Where did it all start?
It all started in Bangalore, Lalit. I was born in Bangalore. I'm a Bangalore boy.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And what do you want to know about me?
In terms of education, where did you do your education and how did that move on into your first transition of life?
So I'm a Germanite, St. Germain's High School.
Okay.
And after that, we moved to Malleshwaram. So my college education happened at MES. And I completed my BCom. I was a rank holder, the second rank holder in Karnataka. Mm-hmm. And soon after that, life took a turn.
Okay.
And my uncle was visiting us from Hong Kong, and he says, "Hey, young man, you've done well for yourself. You deserve a holiday."
Okay.
And off I went with him on a holiday to Hong Kong.
Wow. I mean, I think any kid at that age would love to go travel the world and understand. I'm pretty sure this Hong Kong trip of yours would have given you some learning. So what was this learning that you had, especially post your education?
It was like being a frog out of the well, right? Always lived my life in Bangalore, and then I moved out and saw the world. Mm-hmm. I spent a year in Hong Kong, and in fact, the day I landed, one of my uncle's friends said, "You need pocket money to live in Hong Kong. It's an expensive place. So come over to the office and, let's see what we can find for you to do."
Okay.
And that was an import-export company called GC Exports, and they were in the business of textile imports. Mm-hmm. So I spent a year with him, and it was a great learning. My trip to Hong Kong truly opened my eyes to the world.
Okay.
And it was much more than just the Bangalore that I had known before that.
So I'm curious to know that when you finished your education and you left to Hong Kong, how was your family situation? Like, did you have a family business? And did your parents just agree to let you go to Hong Kong?
Yeah, so they thought I was going on a holiday, right? And my dad in those days used to run a bomb and pop retail store by name Venus on 8th Cross, Malleshwaram. And like all parents, he also probably had the idea that my son will take over my business. But he was very supportive. So he said he thought I was going on a holiday, and off I went. Yeah, but
and did that holiday convert into a long stay, or how did that go?
Yeah, it converted into a long stay, but in those days, Hong Kong, 90 days was the period I could stay there. The visa wouldn't allow me to stay longer. So I was on a tourist visa, but my boss was a great guy. He made me see that part of the world. He used to send me off every 90 days to Taiwan or Macau, and then come back with a new seal on the passport, which allowed me to stay longer. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I spent that time, and it was great learning.
I think that's like boss goals. You need a boss like that, who can encourage you and give you that.
Yeah.
Yes. Sir, again, you said your father was into family business. What was the atmosphere when you grew up? I'm pretty sure your parents, like you said, had expectation. Did you want to continue after you came back from your trip to Hong Kong?
Yeah. So first you need to ask me, why did I come back from there?
Okay, fair enough. Why did you come back from
Yeah.
your beautiful stay there?
So actually, my better half was the reason I came back. My
Nice reason.
yeah, my to-be father-in-law at that time visited Hong Kong, and he said, the place is good learning, but there's nothing happening for you here. You might not get a work permit. There's nothing happening. But back home, you're the only son, and your dad needs you. Your dad needs you. And I won't say that he he was quite, I would say, he was quite open about it. He said, look, you need to make a life for yourself somewhere, and you have a better chance in Bangalore. Go and make a life for yourself there.
Yes.
And spend some time trying to build your dad's business. And then, my daughter is ready. You can get married to her. So it was like saying, Ram, if you don't go back to Bangalore and help your dad in his business, you're not marrying my girl.
I think that's such a lovely way of putting it across, and it did work in your favor. Eventually, well, you did come back. I want to know how that journey went. You definitely have your ups and downs. How did that journey continue after the few years you came back?
Yeah, so the first thing when I did come back from Hong Kong, reality hit me. When I went and joined my father's business, coming back from a glittering city of Hong Kong back to Bangalore was a bit of a shock for me. And the way things were working here was a bit of a shock. So the first 3 or 4 months, I didn't really have that buy-in. But when I did, take up ownership and responsibility in my dad's business, there was no looking back after that. And then we just kept doubling the turnover year on year after that. And the rest is history.
Superb. So what was that one key moment you can say that, at least for somebody like your father who's been so experienced in business, to say, hey, this is the time that my son has learned his due and he can take over from here?
Yeah, so dad had this, he used to write his own books of accounts.
Okay.
And I wanted to automate. So I used to keep the accounts on tally, and I used to always tell him, Dad, you should give this up. So it was that one moment when filing one of our IT returns, the auditor, this chartered accountant, our good friend, told him that, Mr. Gop, your books, you need to change this. We can't file it like this. And then he goes, how will I do it? I've already written them up. And he says, no. If you want to pay this much tax, then go ahead, but you need to change this. So then I said, no worry, Sanjay Dave was my chartered accountant. I said, no worry. I have everything on tally, and I'll just take fresh printouts. That was the turning point when Dad said, hey, you know what? Actually, Ram is doing, what Ram is doing is actually the right thing to do. We should automate. And that's the time when he said, you're ready. He didn't say it in those terms. He just let me take over.
It just happened.
He just let me take over. It's not that, in a family business, the biggest thing is you have these skirmishes where someone who's been running business for so many years, and suddenly you come in and want to change the way things are being run around there. It's difficult. But then he let me do it. So he let me do it. That's all I can say.
And I think embracing that kind of change was a very, very good strategy, especially from both your father's side, and also it worked in your favor. And as you moved on, you said you increased your revenue, and I'm pretty sure revenue comes from really good customers who've been, very supportive to you. Sir, who are your customers? Who are your ideal customers, and what do they come to you for?
Okay, so on the retail front, so when I started business, it was purely retail, right? It was a retail store that sold garments for the whole family, and then we branched out and we branched out and grew that into 5 to 6 retail stores. And at that point in time, we were only catering to the walk-ins that were coming to us, right? But after that, we changed track and we started moving towards bulk supplies. Okay, we started helping colleges with MBA colleges with their requirements of suits, blazers, and uniforms. We started helping a lot of other, colleges across Bangalore and Tumkur and Mysore and basically across Karnataka. And that we also started helping corporates with their event clothing requirement. So that was the way the business started moving. And when you ask me what is it that we used to do for our clients, why did they come back to us? So I always say this: we help relieve our customer stress. When there's a stressed out procurement manager who wants his event clothing on time and he's not able to get it because someone let him down, well, that's where I come in. And he wanted it yesterday, right? And I can help him with that. On the retail front, why customers come back to us, well, it was a family name, my dad's business, the way he had built it. And in those days, the markets being smaller with no malls around, so you had the captive crowd that would come from nearby localities.
And that too, Malleshwaram has a lot of malls, Mantri Square, and some of these malls are quite big and they have a lot of audience. Sir, a very interesting point that you mentioned is that you started off with retail and then moved into bulk. Now, was there an inspiration or a specific moment that triggered this change, saying, hey, wow, this is the moment?
My experience in Hong Kong was supplying lakhs and lakhs of meters of fabric to buyers across the world. And over here, I was sitting in a retail store waiting for a customer to walk in to buy from us. And to get that customer to come in and buy from us, I had to advertise. So that was more money going out of, my pocket. And then I said, okay, people come to us to buy clothes when there's a need. So where is there a need for more such clothing? And then I said, okay, Bangalore is the IT city. Everybody needs clothes. These large corporates need clothes. Colleges need clothes, and everyone needs clothes. So let's try and tap that market. And it all happened quite by accident, actually. When my entire business strategy changed from growing that one retail store into several branches, it happened quite by accident. So I say, at that point in my life, business, when I joined my dad's business, that happened by default. Yeah, it happened by default because I came back from Hong Kong, joined dad's business. But when I got into supplying colleges and got into supplying pharma companies with the event clothing, that happened by drift. When I say it happened by drift, these retail customers that drifted into my store and said, hey, Ram, can you do us 50 T-shirts? Okay. The purchase head of AstraZeneca said, can you do us 50 T-shirts with our logo on it? I said, sure, Adiga, I can do it. That was his name, Sri Krishna Adiga. And then there was no looking back. I said, I can't sell 50 garments, 50 T-shirts in a single day. And here I have a customer who wants 50. So I went out of my way to learn how to do it, and I did it. Similarly, a student from the MP Birla Institute of Management, then called Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, walked into my store because we used to sell a lot of blazers, right? We had that buy one, take 6 free, where you got a whole lot of things free with your blazer. And he says, can you help us with uniforms for MBA students? I didn't even blink. I said, sure, we can help you. And that's how the college business started. So that's how my business moved from that of default. Then through drift, we drifted into corporate supplies. And finally, we ended up growing our business by design.
Super.
Yeah.
So, for somebody who's already gone through so many transitions in that phase, when did BNI happen and what was that whole phase like?
April of 2008, I was invited by my chartered accountant, Mr. Sanjay Dave, to a meeting of BNI Dynamic, which was meeting at the Ramanashri Hotel off MG Road. And I still remember that day. He had to call me several times and confirm and reconfirm. And my question was, Sanjay bhai, will it be useful for me to come? Because it was early morning, you see. I was a late riser. And then he says, Ram, you just come. As simple as that. I went there and he says, bring your checkbook. He's my chartered accountant. I don't question him. I took my checkbook. I went there. I loved the meeting. That was the first launch meeting of BNI Dynamic. I joined on the same day. I joined on the very same day. And it was from then on, it was BNI that helped me actually live my life by design.
Super.
The drifting stopped altogether.
True. And again, for a process like BNI to work for you, it definitely takes some amount of time. And you moving from a bit of B2C to a B2B kind of an atmosphere, when did you get your first breakthrough referral, you can call it, in BNI? How did that happen?
Okay. So that's interesting. 1 year in BNI, I got no referrals. No referrals. The kind of referrals that I was actually getting were people wanting to buy one shirt, and they would come to my retail store. They would come to my retail store, and pick up that one shirt. But those were not the kind of referrals I was looking for. And the meaningful referral for me happened 1 year down the road. When my time for renewal came up, the glass man in our chapter, Rajan, actually referred me to the Chancery Pavilion for hotel uniforms. I was the clothing guy, right? So I was doing suits, blazers for colleges. So he says, Ram, they need some uniforms. Can you help them? And he referred my name to Susan Verghese, who was the then executive housekeeper there. And off I went to meet her. And she said, so tell me, which 5-star hotels have you worked for? I said, none. But clothing is clothing is clothing. And I have the experience of supplying suits, blazers, and we are doing uniforms in part. And she goes, no, but hotel uniforms are different. I said, if you give me an opportunity, I'll learn along the way. She said, I love your honesty. And you can start with the back of the house uniforms. And that's how we got into hotels. And after that, she referred me to a lady called Jayashree Nagaraj, who was the president of the Southern Housekeepers Association, where I was invited to do a presentation. And after that presentation, I had several hotels who became our clients. So that's how it worked out for us, that referral from BNI.
Superb. And that kind of story is what pulls you to be a part of such a beautiful process, and that's what makes you also become a giver, right? And once you start embracing it through the referral that you've got, and you start giving, everything starts coming back in BNI. And on that note, what is that one core value of BNI that you relate to most?
That one core value of BNI that I relate to most, all the core values that BNI has are amazing. That lifelong learning is the core value I relate to. Because I believe that life is a journey where learning should never stop. I'm in my silver years now, as you can see, and people don't grow old. People don't grow old. They grow old only when they stop growing. People grow old only when they stop growing. So I'm never going to stop growing. So that's one core value of BNI, lifelong learning.
I think lifelong learning is a very essential part for a lot of entrepreneurs, for any human being to just move on. And learning comes not only from one specific place, it comes from a lot of places. I want to ask you, sir, who were your biggest pillars of learning or pillars of strength and knowledge during your years of business?
I've had several, I told you that learning is lifelong, and I've had, if you want to know who my pillars of support were in my life's journey so far, I've had several pillars of support. The first one being my father, and then after him, it has been my father-in-law, my good friend Loki Gounder, and my other good friend from Hong Kong, Kamal Daryanani. These guys, my father-in-law, Loki and Kamal, they just said 3 words to me. Just 3 words. They said, go ahead. Go ahead and do whatever is on your mind. Just go ahead and do it. I'm there. That's all. They just said those 3 words, I am there for you. That's all. It's not that just those 3 words is what fueled me to go ahead, because you always need, in life, you need someone to lean on.
Correct.
Right? And these 3 people were there for me. They were there for me, and they had to only say that, look, we are there. Just do it. And that's all. That's all I needed. That's all I needed, because the one thing that I believe is, I don't like taking favors from anybody. Okay? So, I don't like taking favors from anyone. But when people are there and they tell you that they are there for you, even though I never really went out there and, asked them to do something for me, the very fact that they just said that has taken me a long way.
Correct.
Yeah, and when you speak of learning, there are these statements, that people make as in your life's journey. One of the statements that stuck in my mind, in my head, one of the statements that stuck has been what my one of my favorite uncles, Mr. Haru Ramchandani, he used to run the L&T division. I think it was the engineering division in Bangalore. He's part of the Rotary as well. And one of the things that he told me is, Ram, in life, to be successful, you need to be flexible. Don't ever be rigid. You need to be flexible. So that's kind of stuck. And the other thing, the other statement that comes to my mind is from Swami Swarupananda, who is a young man from Hong Kong who gave up his father's riches and joined the Chinmaya mission. And today he's the head of the Chinmaya mission in Coimbatore. I got introduced to him thanks to my father-in-law. He had come over to his house for lunch, and I got introduced to him, and my father-in-law shared with me several tapes of his, and one of the statements that he made to me, I used to love his talks. I used to listen to a lot of his talks, especially on the Gita. And I used to, when I met him over lunch, I told him, Swamiji, I've heard your talks. And in your talks, one of the things that you say is you need to do your duty. In doing your duty as a son, your right is fulfilled. In doing your duty to your father and mother as a son, your right is fulfilled. In doing your duty to your children, your rights as a father are fulfilled. In doing your duty to your wife, your rights as a husband are fulfilled. So just do your duty. So I told him, Swamiji, I've been doing all of this. But in doing my duties, I love your tapes, but I still don't get the time to listen to them. He says, my dear young man, you have forgotten one important duty. I said, what is that? He says, your duty to yourself. When have you taken out time for yourself? That day and today, I always take out time for myself. My me time is the most important time for me. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I learned along the way.
Fantastic. Yeah. Sir, and I truly believe with these kind of pillars, you can accelerate in life. You can gain the kind of success. And with that just little confidence, like you said, like how your father-in-law and the rest of them would just say, I'm here with you, is all it takes to go that 1,000 miles, because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with just one step. Sure. On that note, sir, moving on, what are some of the passions and interests you have apart from business and apart from all the other things that you do? What are some of your passions and interests?
Okay, I have a lot of interests. So one of my interests is music and dance. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I love dancing. Mm-hmm. And
what kind of dance?
Okay, ballroom dancing. I love to do the cha-cha-cha. I love to do the salsa. I do the jive. Mm-hmm. I even learned how to do the tango, which I have forgotten now. I do the quick step. Mm-hmm. So we do about 6 kinds of dances. Mm-hmm. And this 1 year that I was cooped up at home, was lockdown. And yeah, so I used to dance at home as well. I love dancing.
That's nice.
I love music. I love dance. And there's another interest that I, have, that of photography. So I love, taking pictures of wildlife. And I do that because I was gifted a camera by my daughter. She broke the first camera I got her. And so it was lying there, and I fixed it, and I've been using it. I love photography. I love gardening. That's something I've taken to in the time that I had, over the past 1 year. I love gardening. And another thing that I do like is also playing chess. And not to forget, I love playing Legend of Zelda on my Nintendo Switch.
That's nice. So you're a Nintendo Switch fan, is it?
Yes, I am.
What other, do you play any other games?
Yeah, so Mario, of course.
Mario.
I grew up on Mario, but let me tell you that this Nintendo Switch was gifted to me by both my daughters, okay, about a couple of years ago. Yeah. They said, no, that little boy in you needs to be alive. So Legend of Zelda is my favorite. Yeah.
That's nice. And, I think it's one of the most fun console games you can play. Yeah. And that too because of the kind of interaction you can have and the movement it gives you.
Sure.
Yeah. So moving on, do you believe in spirituality? And if you do believe in spirituality, what is it? And where did you learn it from?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So I told you about I put a question to Swami Swarupananda, the person I spoke of earlier, and I've been a follower of Swami Chinmayanandaji's teachings, and especially Swami Swarupananda's talk on the Karma Yoga, chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita. And I used to always have this question because I come from a family where my grandmother used to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and meditate. She had a red light on. She was part of the Brahma Kumaris, which is widespread across the globe. And she used to sit in her room focusing on that red light and, on that red light and actually meditating. So I put this question to Swami Swarupananda and I said, Swamiji, about spirituality, tell me, I've heard this entire chapter of the Karma Yoga, chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, over and over and over again, I'm living it. But tell me, how does one meditate? My mind, how does one keep the mind calm? Because to meditate, you need to keep your mind calm, and my mind is flitting from here to there. Please tell me how I can keep my mind calm. He says, you cannot keep your mind calm. He says your mind is like the river which starts from the mountains. As the river flows down, the water is crystal clear. And as it comes down the mountains, over the rocky surface and onto the plains, it collects a lot of mud. And the water turns muddy. You need to move your mind away from all those irrelevant thoughts and move them upwards, go upstream. Move them towards purer thoughts. And that, my dear son, is meditation. Move to the higher. As you climb a flight of stairs, you leave the lowest step and move on to the higher step. So also in life, you need to move to the higher step. And that's meditation, my son. And I go, but Swamiji, how can I keep once again I ask him. And he says, very nicely, he says, Bete, pani mein utroge, tabhi to tairna sikhoge. If you jump into the water, only then you will learn how to swim. And then it struck me. I said, wow, that's so true, because that's how I learned to swim. My cousin put me at the deep end of the swimming pool, and I had to move my arms and legs to save my life, and I learned how to swim. So when you ask me about spirituality and meditation, that when I get up in the mornings and I have with me Rahul Sharma on the santoor, and I have with me Hari Prasad Chaurasya on the flute, and I have with me Niladri Kumar on the zitar, I am there. Okay? I am there. I am not ritualistic, but if keeping the mind calm and moving towards purer thoughts is spirituality, then that is what I believe.
Absolutely, and I think music resonates with that, because to enjoy music, you got to be in that moment, and without being in that moment, you can never enjoy music itself. And like you said, sir, spirituality is something that will take you as a fleet of stairs, and once you keep moving on, you have to learn how to let go and just be, and that's how you move on. On that note, we come to the end of this wonderful podcast, this segment of this podcast, and it's been amazing to understand about your life journey, your business, and definitely how your BNI started off. And today, you've been helping so many other entrepreneurs live the right kind of BNI path and the entrepreneur journey. I just want to ask you one more question about your training part of it, because I know training is a very important part of your journey. What is this training interest that you have? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Okay, it all started with me being out there with the mic, right? So I was the guy, whenever we had a party at home, party with friends, I was the guy with the mic. I wanted people to have fun. I like being in the limelight. It started with that. And then as I moved along and I became a part of BNI, and I found that we had to do our presentations, and I kind of opted for taking a larger role in BNI pretty earlier on. Okay, pretty early on. I think within 2 years of my membership in BNI, Murli Srinivasan at that time said, Ram, why don't you take on this role of a launch director? And I was quite excited because it was learning, right? I was excited. When I'm learning something new, I'm always excited. And then I was part of the launch of the Inspire chapter. But after that, I found that, hey, you know what? Probably this is not up my street. And then I wanted to hand in my badge. At that point, Balaji said, no, Ram, we are not taking the badge back from you. And why don't you try your hand out at training? So I'm happy to say that thanks to Balaji, that I am the trainer that I am today. It was he who fueled this interest of mine. And I'm happy I'm able to make a difference to members in BNI.
Yeah. And I really think any member who's watching this, who hasn't attended your training, should attend your training, because I really think you bring in your own authenticity, your flavor, and the whole experience is quite wonderful, and you give a holistic experience. So thank you for the training that I've attended almost a year ago. And thank you for this wonderful segment. We conclude this segment now, and we'll move on to the fun segment, which is the rapid fire round. Okay. So are you ready to take this on?
Sure.
Okay. So for the rapid fire round, sir, we'll want you to answer in about 5 seconds.
Do you want me to wear my bulletproof jacket?
No, no problem.
That's
so
fine.
We'll keep the firing a little slower. What motivates you to get out of bed in the morning?
What motivates me to get out of bed? BNI.
BNI.
So on the lighter side, but actually speaking, BNI is the one that made me an early riser.
Early riser.
But I got many benefits from there, and now I can't sleep beyond 6 a.m. Yeah.
Okay, super. Name another business profession you wouldn't mind getting into.
I'm already into coaching.
Coaching.
Yeah, I'm already into coaching.
If not for coaching, apart from these two.
If not for coaching, maybe a dance coach. I don't know.
Makes sense. Name 3 business leaders you would want to have a discussion over dinner.
3 business leaders. Tony Robbins,
okay,
for sure. I know I love him. Tony Robbins, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, and who's the third guy? Yeah, Tim Cook.
Tim Cook, yes.
Of course, Apple.
Apple, yes.
Yes, and of course, I would love to have dinner with Swami Swarupananda as well. He's a leader in his own right.
Yes, very true. So I think these 4 people would be...
Can I make it 5?
Go on.
Elon Musk as well.
Elon Musk. Yes, again a genius.
Yeah, the innovator. Lovely.
What are some of the most inspirational books or videos that you've come across?
Okay, so, actually, I never read much. But the books that I have read, I'll tell you about. Awaken the Giant Within, okay, by Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins, yes.
And Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
And the book that I read most recently, because I'm passionate about business storytelling, is a book by this guy called Indranil Chakraborty, a book called Stories at Work. But in addition to that, let me tell you that I complete a book every morning. 1 book every day on Blinkist. I thank Murali Srinivasan for introducing me to Blinkist 12 years ago. And ever since then...
What does it do, sir?
Blinkist gives you a book on tape, right?
Oh.
So I listen to books. I listen to podcasts. And one of my favorites now is... today's book was The Slight Edge. Today's Blinkist book was The Slight Edge. How basic disciplines can help you achieve success. So amazing books. Every day I have a new book that I complete. And in addition to that, I listen to podcasts. There's this amazing podcast called Arete Coach Podcast. So he's one of the guys who was in my coaching class as well. So I've taken up I'll be a certified executive coach. And this man is a successful executive coach in the US.
Okay.
And I listened to his podcast recently. Yeah. So I listen to a lot of podcasts.
That's a lot of wonderful books and podcasts that I think I would definitely want to listen to the podcast. But on the book side, I can vouch for these 3 books being really good.
Yeah. There was one more. I didn't tell you that.
Which one?
The Alchemist.
The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho.
Paulo Coelho. Yeah. I love that as well. Yeah.
Yes. Again, a very, very famous book, and I think it's one of the best books.
Actually, these are the only ones I read.
And it's nice that you read them. They're the best. Yeah. If you authored a book, what would you call it?
Challenges or opportunities.
Challenges or opportunities. Interesting.
Because you know why I said that? Because my life's mantra is challenges are what make life interesting. And overcoming them is what makes life meaningful.
Correct.
So our challenge is opportunities. So the title would probably be Challenges or Opportunities.
Lovely. Are you a coffee or a tea person?
Awesome lavender and rose green tea. Introduced to me by one of our members.
Okay.
One tea bag with about 5 cups of hot water.
Okay.
No, I'm neither a tea drinker nor a coffee drinker,
Okay.
nor milk. But awesome tea is amazing, and I do have green tea every
Sounds
morning.
very fancy though.
Yeah,
Sounds very-
lovely. You must try it. It's called Awesome.
Okay.
And lavender and rose is my favorite.
Okay.
And I've tried many brands after that.
Okay.
So it's just one tea bag, but I'll have it with 5 cups of hot water. I drink a lot of hot water, just that one tea bag.
Fantastic. Indoor or outdoor?
Outdoor.
Outdoor. Any day. If you
Outdoor.
could teach one subject in school, what would it be?
Networking.
Networking. Interesting subject.
Obviously.
But I kind of feel kids don't need to be taught networking because they have their own way of it.
So you didn't specify which class.
Which class?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time, English or Hindi, or is it what I'm currently watching?
You can.
What I'm currently watching, my favorite Netflix program is Harvey Specter, Suits.
Suits. Okay.
Okay, I'm just hooked onto it now. 9 seasons. I got onto it a bit late, but yeah. Otherwise, Breaking Bad was my favorite.
Breaking Bad was your favorite. What about your movie? Let's say Hindi.
My movie, Hindi, Sholay.
Sholay.
English, Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. Okay. Fantastic. I haven't watched that movie though.
Yeah.
I should watch it.
You
Formals or casuals? You being the clothing man.
So you can see I'm a blend of both.
A blend of both.
Yeah. Appropriate dressing.
What was your worst subject in school?
What was my worst subject in school? History.
But you were a topper.
I was. I didn't like mugging things up,
Okay,
Kind of.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair
so
enough.
history.
A lot
But
of
it's my
dates and all.
daughter's favorite though. The lawyer's favorite, yeah.
Nice one. What do you do to relax?
I told you, Hari Prasad, Chaurasya, Rahul Sharma.
Music.
In addition to that, Elvis, Cliff Richards, you name the genre, and music.
Superb. I think that's the best mode of relaxation. Okay, one last question, sir. If you would make a documentary about anything, what would it be?
If I would make a documentary, what would it be? Oh, that's something you've caught me right now. Okay, what would the documentary be about? I love the outdoors. So probably I'd make a documentary about adventure sport. I recently, last year, I jumped off a cliff in Cape Town with my daughter, my younger daughter. We jumped off a cliff and we grew wings.
Oh, super.
So
Was it a bungee jump?
it was not a bungee jump. It was a glide off the cliff.
Oh, superb.
Yeah, so I love adventure sport.
Superb.
Yeah, the next step is we are going to go to Dubai and jump off a plane.
Oh man, that should be. I think that's something that's there on my bucket list as well. I'm a adventure junkie myself,
Okay.
so I'm pretty sure that would be thrilling. On that note, thank you so much, Ram sir, for coming onto this podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed this podcast from start to finish. And personally, I've had a lot of takeaways, and I like the flavor, the charisma that you bring into you bring into the meeting in BNI. You bring on stage, and you bring onto a podcast like this. So thank you so much for coming. I have 3 specific takeaways, and before I give out these takeaways, I want to know how did you feel being on this podcast?
I felt you put me in the limelight, man. I told you. Yeah, it's nice. It's lovely. It's a great thing you're doing. And it's nice. I wish you all the best. It's a pleasure being here. I'm sorry, though. I was one of the first guys you called, and in the early days, I wasn't let off by my better half. And she said, no, how can you go? There's COVID everywhere and you can't step out.
Correct.
So I said, okay, I need to respect that as well. And then I'm glad that I'm finally here. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful time. And I think, again, too many takeaways. And to summarize these takeaways in 3 specific points, the first one is to understand how to change in business. Because if you don't change, then, there's nothing that you can do. And change is the only way to have that power in this world. The second one is to always make sure that you can grab all the opportunities that come to you. And if you miss any opportunity and you keep thinking, the opportunity will pass by, and that could be a life-changing opportunity. So grab every opportunity. And this was from your Hong Kong story, to be in specific. The ultimate one is your core value that you mentioned. And for me, that was the final highlight because it was very significant in throughout your journey. You kept learning. You moved from a B2C model to a B2B model, and constant lifelong learning is the ultimate key, not only for a successful BNI journey, but also successful life and a professional life. So on that 3 wonderful points, thank you so much for coming on this show, sir.
But before you wind up, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
If I was to give you a watermelon, what would you do with it?
If you'd give me a watermelon, I'd take a slice of it, I'd eat it, and then I'd take the rest of the watermelon, I'd make a juice and sell it with 10 people and buy 10 more watermelons.
Ask me the same question.
I know where this is coming from. Okay, so what would you do if I gave you a watermelon?
So I'd add a shot of vodka to it with a sprig of mint and some crushed ice and make a lovely watermelon cooler and chill in my balcony watching the birds and listening to my music.
Now you hit two birds in one stone by answering 2 questions. Lovely, sir. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, and looking forward to having you on more such podcasts in the future. Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, you know what to do. All you have to do is comment, share, and subscribe. We would love to know your feedback, so please do comment down below. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for such amazing, wonderful episodes that are coming your way. Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.